And now look to Air Marshal Chris Nickols to close the case for the opposition. Hear, hear.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, like all of you in this room, I cherish and I value our lifestyle here in the UK. And in societies similar to ours around the world, at this great place of learning, Oxford, you understand better than most that we benefit hugely from the freedom to live largely as we please, to express ourselves, even about the proposer's socks, through the freedom of speech, to disagree with one another, as we are doing tonight, to have privacy, and of course, to live our lives in safety and security. But freedoms do not come for free. They have had to be defended, often at very great cost over the last couple of hundred years or so in Europe particularly, and they're now threatened by those who wish to force their beliefs on all of us and show no tolerance for alternative views. They're prepared to go to any lengths to do this, particularly to kill or to injure indiscriminately, to try and frighten us into accepting their views. For those, and I have been one in the past, trying to defend us and ensure our safety and our security, especially our intelligence services, these extremists are extremely difficult to find and defend against. Now, unlike the EU debate, where we've been bombarded with opinions and predictions, many of them largely unsubstantiated, let me give you a few facts. Firstly, from Andrew Parker, the Director General of the Security Service, or as you would know it, commonly called MI5, and someone who has immense experience in the security of the nation against a whole range of threats. He said, and I quote, "Police and security services have needed to intervene to foil 6 plots in the last year, any one of which could have caused mass deaths and casualties. The threat is continuing to grow." I would add that any one of those could have been the UK's equivalent of Charlie Hebdo, the Bataclan Theatre, or Brussels Airport. He goes on, "The threat level to the UK has worsened, and we know that extremist groups in Syria, Iraq and other places are directly trying to orchestrate attacks in the UK. In fact, as of June last year, more than 700 British citizens had travelled to Syria, and what most people don't know is half of them have already returned, many of those having undergone terrorist-type training and indoctrination. We also know that 50% of MI5's work is now devoted to counter-terrorism. That's some 2,000 people working on it there, in addition to many thousands of others in other government organisations and agencies. The point is that keeping us safe and secure does not just happen by chance. It requires a massive effort by our government on our behalf. But the primary issue we're debating this evening is the terrorist use of modern communications. These give them global reach for influence in the spread of their extremist ideas and radicalisation of susceptible individuals. Worse still, perhaps, those very communications are then used in the detailed planning and the conduct of any attacks. To quote Mr. Parker again, he says, "Terrorists are increasingly using secure apps and internet communication to incite and direct terrorism amongst people who live here and are prepared to listen to them. Almost all of MI5's top priority UK counter-terrorism investigations had used communications intercept capabilities to identify, to understand, and to disrupt terrorist plots. So if we lose that ability, and terrorists are confident that they are beyond the reach of MI5 and GCHQ working with proper legal warrants, then our ability to keep the country safe is reduced. Note that he said working with proper legal warrants. We are not talking about routine access by the government to all of our data. And finally, he says, there is a dangerous imbalance between increasing numbers of plots against the UK and a drop in capabilities of the intelligence services to intercept communications. Of course, the threat to our society is not just about terrorism. The threat to our way of life is threatened by a wide variety of illegal and highly dangerous practices, many of which are also conducted by terrorist organisations. Organised crime, particularly cybercrime, theft and proliferation of WMD materials, people trafficking, abuse, the list goes on. But perhaps my last words should be left to the UK's independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. His name is David Anderson. He's a highly respected Queen's Counsel lawyer who's been reviewing and considering our terrorism legislation and practices for some time. He's been given access to the most sensitive operational and intelligence information, and last year published his review of the UK's investigatory powers. In it, he was highly critical of a number of elements of our legislation, and he made a wide-ranging proposals for changes. The government is now considering those. But despite all of this, he came to one particularly clear conclusion. He asked the question, do we want to deliberately create areas which are beyond the reach of the law? His answer, in my view, was absolutely unequivocal. He said, and I quote, "We need a process in which public authorities are not shut out from places where they need access to keep us safe." I'll finish with one final observation. Many large global corporates have been found to be out of tune with society's expectations and standards recently, whether over tax, respect for the environment, care of our health, or just plain lies about their products' performance. Sales and profits for shareholders seemingly come before morals and ethics. But we should not be allowing these unaccountable corporates, just because of technological advances, and often with questionable values, to be making the decisions on our safety and our security. That is the job of our governments in a free and democratic society. No matter how imperfect they sometimes are, they are more open and transparent in how they serve us, the people, rather than a small group of shareholders. They, not the technology companies, should make the ultimate and difficult decisions on the balance between our privacy and our security. That is why this evening I urge you to oppose the motion placed before you.